Hi, this is Ronika Wahi. I'm back with another interview. This time it's with Anya Leonard, who's the founder and director of Classical Wisdom Weekly. Anya has knowledge of sociology, philosophy, history, having studied these disciplines in her degree courses, and because she had an immense interest in the ideas and the wisdom that the ancient Greek and Latin texts offered, whether they were written by philosophers, historians, poets, dramatists. They offered a lot of wisdom that she found was valid even today. So she planned on starting this journey and has been on it since the last 12 years. She's sharing the wisdom, the knowledge, stuff about the contexts in which those ancient texts were written, stuff about people who wrote them, and the people who lived on in those times with a large mass of people in an easy, accessible format through her website, Classical Wisdom Weekly. And today she's going to share with us more about her venture. So first of all, thank you so much, Anya, for agreeing for this interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So let's start with what was the starting point for you. So how did your fascination with the ancient Greek and Latin texts begin, and how did you begin to love the wisdom and appreciate appreciate all the ideas and philosophies that they were offering?
Well, I wrote in the introduction of the Essential Greeks that before I read the classics were read to me. And I was very fortunate that my mother loved mythology mostly, and she loved Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Indian mythology, and she used to read to us all of the different books. And I remember as a little girl, I had my two older brothers, she would be reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. And at the time, I probably didn't think I was paying attention, but obviously it seeped in. So it kept with me. And as I got older, I used to travel a lot and live in different countries, and it would be often me and my brother. And I remember one time we were actually in Kazakhstan at the time, and my brother and I had gone to an observatory to study the stars. He kept asking me these questions like, where are we from? What's the purpose? And I remember thinking at the time, I was like a teenage girl. I'm thinking, oh, I don't care about these things. And he looked at me very seriously. He said, you've got to think about this stuff. So I said, okay, you know what? He's right. We have to take time to just think about what it is to have a good life and how we should be living it and what is the purpose. And that sort of is where it began.
Right. So how did you decide to start Classical Wisdom Weekly? And in these years since you started in 2010, what has your journey been like?
Well, it's definitely been an interesting journey. So originally, Classical Wisdom was founded with the mission of finding a way to make the classics sustainable. And I co-founded it with a man named Bill Bonner, who actually owns a very large financial publishing business with companies all over the world, in India, Brazil, Argentina, all throughout the US and Europe, Australia. And he is also the owner of Le Belette, which is a French publishing house. And it is the last publishing house to critically translate ancient texts. And there's still thousands of ancient texts that have not been properly translated. There's still lots of documents. We don't know what wisdom is in them. But of course, it's not necessarily a obviously profitable endeavor. And so my goal was to kind of within the English market, the English-speaking market, which is much larger than the French-speaking market, to find a way that we could be self-sustainable, because the classics are really important, and it's not something that you want to just leave to grants and to sponsorships. I mean, you kind of, I want to foster the appreciation of the classics in the general public, and for them to see the value and to make it kind of continue that way. And throughout the years, it's gone. I was with Agora for a while, and then we sort of separated very amicably. And then I started up with another website, and it's kind of always evolving depending on technology and the mediums and where we can find people. And so I think for the next step, we're going to try to do a more ad-free, community-based platform. So it's always evolving.
Right. Great. So, yeah, like you were saying that the intention, and particularly with the choice of language, it was to reach a large number of people, right, and offer the wisdom that these texts contain. So, throughout these years, what do you consider your key milestones, and what have been the most satisfying aspects of educating people in this way?
Well, yeah, the reality is the moments that are kind of they're the little moments, actually, rather than huge milestones. I get wonderful emails from our community members and reader mails, and for people to express their gratitude at what we're trying to do and to acknowledge the effort and the goal of trying to preserve the classics and help demonstrate their value in our modern world. It's those individual emails and letters that are very heartwarming and reassuring. And I always respond back, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But we've had a few really exciting moments also in the last 2 years with our symposiums. And I did the first one, the first year of the pandemic, and we had a great turnout. We had amazing professors. And then the second year, we had also incredible professors like Neil Ferguson and Victor Davis Hanson and Edith Hall, and just like some of the most brilliant minds in the world of classics and philosophy and history alive today joined the Classical Wisdom Symposium. And I just thought that was really cool.
Right. So, apart from these events that you're hosting, right? So you have these regular podcasts, you have webinars, and you also are offering courses apart from whatever's there on your website, the articles or the ebooks that you have on offer. So if you could provide some details for whoever is watching this video about the various resources that that they can use to educate themselves about these texts.
Yeah, I mean, we try to, as you said, write things about the ancient world that make them super accessible and easy to read. So if you go to our website, I've kind of broadly categorized the classical world into 3 major categories, which is philosophy, history, and mythology. And I always say to people, there's obviously quite a Venn diagram between the 3, but whatever your interest is in, approach it from that way. If you're really into, say, Stoicism or philosophy, start there. If you're really into the stories of, Hercules and Jason the Argonauts or Medusa, I mean, it's so rich in mythology. Start there. And if you're interested in history, you want to hear about the Battle of Actium and Cleopatra and Octavian. I mean, the stories are just too good to be true, almost. You couldn't make this stuff up. It has all of the greatest factors for drama and narrative. I personally was a drama kid in school, and I loved theater, so I love the ancient Greek plays. So find whatever you're interested in and start it in that direction. Like I said, we have podcasts that cover all the different aspects as well as webinars, but I think for people to join the world through their own interests is the best way.
Right. So we've been talking about this also about the wisdom that these ancient Greek and Latin texts are offering. For you personally, what have been the most important lessons or takeaways that you've had through reading these various texts?
Well, I mean, there's so many, to be honest, and I'm still learning because this is such a huge field. And I should preface just very quickly for people who might not be aware that the classical world, sort of generally defined, is I usually do about 1200 BC to about 500 AD, and it covers like everything to do with Greece and Rome, and by extension all of the regions connected to them, as far as Alexander the Great went. So it's from northern India. From India to northern UK to Northern Africa. Like, it really is a huge world. And within that realm, there's so much philosophy and literature and everything. So one of the things I love would be, from Socrates. And people always hear the phrase, "I know that I know nothing." But Socrates did know a lot, actually. And and he knew that he knew a lot, to be honest. The phrase is actually, "I do not claim to know that which I do not know." And I think that's really important, that when we don't know something, we should say that we don't know it. And that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but we often make claims and make opinions on things that we don't really know that much about. So the idea is, if you really don't know about it, to be honest with yourself, to suspend judgment, and to say, "I don't know about this, I'm going to learn more." And there's a great quote by Epictetus, which is like along the lines of, if a vessel is already filled, wait, actually, I think I've got it up here. Let me just read it very quickly. For it is impossible for anyone to begin to learn that which he already thinks he knows. So I think it's really valuable for us to know when we don't know something, and as a result, open our minds to learning something. And I think that's also really good to be able to suspend judgment. And this is something the skeptics did a lot when listening to a person from the opposition. And, the world right now, and many, many countries, there's a huge polarization and division between one side and the other. And that's very dangerous. But I think that by promoting the ideas of ancient philosophy and skepticism, it can help bridge those divides by giving people the tools to talk to other people that they don't think they agree with, but to change their perspective a little bit and open up their minds to just being able to listen to the person is absolutely instrumental. So those are two things that I think are really valuable for both myself and I think in our current culture. There's another one I really love, and for people who like the concepts of the ancient world, there's one that's really beautiful called Xenia, and it is the ancient belief, almost religion, in hospitality and how we treat others and how to be a good guest and a good host. And when you're in a foreign country or within your own home, within a group of friends and family members, and it's about sort of understanding mutual respect for people. And the whole story of the Odyssey is about Xenia. So I love that there's these concepts that when we think about it and we realize, like, hey, these are important. How we treat others, hospitality is important, and to respect that and to acknowledge it.
Thank you so much, Anya, for sharing these. And okay, one more thing that I'd really like you to talk about is this, especially considering how the last 2 years have been for a lot of us. They've been really stressful. So there was this book that Classical Wisdom came out with a few years ago, and I remember reading it a few years back. So it was entitled "How to Be Happy: A Guide Through Ancient Ethical Philosophy." So if you could share for whoever's watching this video some key thoughts about happiness that the ancient thinkers and philosophers discussed.
Once again, there are so many, and so I'll try to be brief about a few of them that I think are the most important. One is Epicureanism. And when people hear the word Epicurus now, and this is true with a lot of these ancient philosophies, the terms have changed. And so cynics, Stoic, skeptics, Epicurean, all of them, we have connotations now that have nothing to do with the ancient philosophy. So it's important to go back to the original text. But so Epicureanism nowadays, people think is about decadence and such, but yeah. Epicurus, yeah, exactly. It's about food, right? But in the ancient world, Epicureanism was it's a lovely philosophy. It's about avoiding pain and finding pleasure and happiness. But happiness is found often through moderation and through enjoying simple things. So the Epicureans wouldn't be about eating their food off gold plates. It's about enjoying your cup of coffee or cup of tea at the exact temperature. And taking a moment and realizing the happiness and joy that is and drinking your drink at the exact right temperature. That everybody can feel that. And every time in your life, if you're struggling with stress or anxiety or chronic pain, being able to enjoy a drink at the exact temperature is achievable and can bring us joy and happiness in a small way. So I think that's one of the easy ones. And to continue with moderation, Aristotle goes on quite a bit about finding the mean. And I think that's always really valuable in seeing our actions between cowardice and bravery and being foolhardy. That there's a moment in between when we're trying to live a virtuous life and a good life, to always see that we're not at the extremes, that we find that in between. Aristotle also talks a lot about different types of friendship and love. And this is actually something I've been realizing that is in a lot of the ancient Greeks and philosophies, is about friendship, and to identify the different friendships that you have. So in ancient Greek, there was different terms for different types of friendship. And to be able to look at your friends and say, okay, this is a friendship that's based on mutual benefit, which is okay, but to see that you're sort of both benefiting, versus this is a friendship that's like truly pure and valuable friendship that is of great importance, or a friendship that is like a work associate. When we can identify those different friendships, and sometimes they're friendships that aren't very good for us at all, and we should cut those off. But when we can identify those different friendships and we know where we should commit our time and energy to, that it's very, very important and valuable for us to find our community and to maintain those relationships. And another one I think is really big and very popular now, and I know I'm giving a lot, quite a few rundown of ancient philosophy here, but is Stoicism. And Stoicism is enjoying, I think, a bit of a renaissance right now, but there's a reason for it. Stoicism has enjoyed renaissances throughout the ages, particularly in difficult times. And there are so many practical tools in Stoicism that can help people with regards to, again, stress, anxiety. And one of the really useful points is the ability to see the difference between the things that we have control over and the things that we don't have control over. And the things that we don't have control over, to let go and release. And, lockdowns and pandemics, I mean, there's a lot of these things, war, famine, that are out of our control. And then what we do have in our control is how we react to things, how we spend our time, and to realize that we should put our energy and efforts in the things that we control. And that when we're trying to seek happiness, we should never seek happiness in things that are outside of our control. And that includes, for instance, the opinions of others upon ourselves. Or sometimes it's even like your entire financial, economic situation or geopolitics. If you're only going to be happy in those things, and they're out of your control, that is a horrible combination for that will only lead to unhappiness. So to seek happiness in the things that we have in control, I think, is really an essential lesson.
Right. So thanks again for sharing these insights. And so if somebody isn't well versed in the classics, right? Somebody doesn't know about this field, which text would you recommend that the person start with? And also, if you could just give some reasons why you would recommend them.
Again, I think it's for anybody who's starting off, it's good to begin with whatever your interests are. And there are great accessible texts within each kind of field, depending on what your interest is. So for instance, if you're really into philosophy or you want to learn a bit more about Stoicism, a perfect one would be Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And this is very readable. It's a journal written by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and it's his thoughts, his ideas, and they're very relatable. It's very easy to read, and he kind of collects the different wisdoms from Stoicism and his experiences. And he lived through a plague. He lived through wars. He lived through times of decadence or lacking of virtue, and so it's very relatable. I think also for Epictetus is another great one for the philosophy elements of Stoicism. He's very readable. He was a Greek slave who was lame, in fact, and he had a very hard life. And he said that he was free in his mind, and that was through Stoicism. So again, he's just an amazing role model. If you're into more the mythology stuff, I would say you can't start off better than with the Odyssey. That is where ancient Greek history basically begins with. If any of the three options, you should start off with the Odyssey. If you want something that's super readable, this is the newest translation by Emily Wilson. With all of these texts, you do want to check translations. If you just pick up a random one, it might be like a translation from the Victorian age, and it might be cumbersome to read. So whenever you're looking at a book, try, if you're in the bookstore or you're looking on Amazon or online or whatever, if you can, read the reviews on the type of translation, or just take the first page, open it up, a few of them, and see which one you like reading, because that will make a huge difference. And that's like a common mistake people make when reading the ancient text for the first time. Also, for philosophy, again, Plato's Symposium is super readable, or for the plays, Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Those plays, you can read them in an hour, and people know the stories. I mean, the story of Oedipus Rex. Most people kind of have the idea of what happens there, and it's okay that you know the ending. The ancient Greeks would have known the endings too. That's part of the suspense, and they're suspenseful. Like it's a page turner. It's amazing. They're really captivating. They have lasted thousands of years for a reason. And if you're into history, there are so many cool new books out right now. I just did a whole event with Barry Strauss on the Battle of Actium, and I read that book. It was, again, such a fascinating time period. I mean, Cleopatra and Mark Antony battling against Octavian for the Roman Empire. I mean, it's juicy stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. I've also did events with Paul Cartridge on Thebes. That was a great book. There's a lot of, Mary Beard does a lot of really great books. We also at Classical Wisdom have a lot of great anthologies. So if you're interested in getting a huge overview, this book is really genuinely a great place to start. This is called The Essential Classics. And this was originally composed by Les Bellets, the French publishing company I mentioned. And it starts off with introductions, biographies, it comes with maps, and it is an anthology of the greatest ancient Greek and Roman texts. So if you were to get one book, you could literally get this book, and it covers Homer to Marcus Aurelius. It's got it all in one spot. We also had the Essential Greeks, which is a companion, but this is where to begin. And finally, because I talk a lot, if you have children and you want to start them off and get the next generation, I have recently released Sappho, a book about the ancient Greek poetess Sappho. She was in the 7th century BC, and in her time period, she was considered equal to Homer. And so I'm trying to bring back Sappho's great renown, and it's a very exciting story for children about the rediscovery of the brothers' poem that only happened in 2014. It was found in an Egyptian vase in an ancient Egyptian trash heap. And it's a great story to help teach kids about poetry, archaeology, and history. So for anybody who wants to inspire the love of the classics in the future, that's also an option.
Right. And so, okay, so on your website, what else are you offering? I mean, in the future, like people who are already following you and those who are going to follow you, what do they have to look forward to?
Well, there's a lot of ideas I have for the future, and there's a lot of really exciting ones. One thing I'd like to do is sort of create an actual book club where we can all read together the text and discuss it, because I think, as I was saying with Aristotle before, friendship and community is essential. And I think that for the classics lovers all over the world, it's great to know that we're all out there and that we can, enjoy getting wisdom from each other. So classical wisdom is a truly international endeavor. It's something I really love and pride myself about. And whenever we have events, it's literally, I ask everybody, where are you from? And there's always people coming in from South Africa and Australia and the UK and Serbia, I mean, everywhere, Brazil, all over the world. So it's something I truly love. And so I'd like to just kind of nurture that community a lot more. And I'd also like to, in the future, do more things for kids. We're working on another children's book about Cleopatra. When she was a little girl, she went on a trip with her father. And this is all true story. And she went to visit a lot of the ancient wonders of the classical world. So it's a book about her traveling around and seeing ancient wonders with her father. So I think that'll be, and it's got Cleopatra, who is so cool. She spoke 9 languages, so she's like the guide. She's the Virgil of the ancient world.
Right. Anything else you'd like to share about classical wisdom or your work, or any message that you'd like to give people?
Well, I love that we have a growing community, and anybody who's new to the classics, I tell everybody it's like a toolkit. It's a wonderful toolkit. And, the sad reality is that we will go in our life and have difficult times. We will have anxiety, we will have stress, we will have loss. There will be moments in our life when we will have anger. And what ancient philosophy can do is it can provide you the tools to handle those things, to handle those difficult times. And it's good to have that toolbox ready for when you need it. So that from that element, I really encourage people to find the ancient wisdom. And even if the Greco-Roman period isn't of interest, there is great wisdom throughout the world. So more than anything else, I want people to look back in history and see the lessons wherever they find them, wherever in the world that they are, and to appreciate history and ancient philosophies and to see how valuable they are now. So that's what I really hope for people to find. And if they can find some of that in classical wisdom, great. But anywhere you can find ancient wisdom is worthwhile.
Thank you so much, Anya, for sharing these insights and for this rich discussion. It was a pleasure interacting with you. And if you're watching this video, do check out Classical Wisdom's website. It's classicalwisdom.com. It's there. The link is there in the description box as well. So do check out the various resources and learn about the wisdom that our ancients had to offer. And if you enjoyed watching this video and if you found it useful, please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.